Imagine this, a 26-year-old general, considered too young, too thin, too inexperienced by the very army he was about to command, stands at the edge of the Alps in the spring of 1796. His soldiers are starving, their boots are worn through, and half of Europe is laughing at France for sending this Corsican nobody to fight one of the most powerful empires in the world. 6 months later, that same young general had shattered every Austrian force sent against him, conquered most of northern Italy, and pulled off a battlefield maneuver so fast and so brutal that the Habsburgs could barely process what had happened before it was already over. That battle was the Battle of Bassano. And if you have never heard of it, you are about to understand why it completely changed the course of the entire Italian campaign. Welcome back to HISTORYVEIL, where we pull back the curtain on the moments that shaped our world. I am so glad you are here today, because this episode is one I have personally been excited about for a very long time. The Italian campaign of 1796 is one of the most extraordinary military stories in all of human history, and the Battle of Bassano is one of its most explosive chapters. So if you are new here, hit that subscribe button right now, because we cover exactly this kind of content every single week. And if you are already part of the HISTORYVEIL family, welcome back. Let us get into it. To understand why Bassano matters so much, we need to rewind just a little. By the summer of 1796, Napoleon Bonaparte had already stunned Europe with a string of victories in northern Italy. He had smashed through Piedmont, forced the Kingdom of Sardinia out of the war, and driven deep into Austrian-controlled Lombardy. Milan had fallen. The French tricolor was flying over territory the Habsburgs had considered untouchable. But Austria was not finished. Not even close. They kept sending armies south through the Alps to push Napoleon back, and Napoleon kept destroying them. What followed became a grinding back-and-forth struggle centered on one critical location, the fortress city of Mantua. Mantua was the key to everything. It was the strongest fortress in northern Italy, and as long as Austria held it, they had a base from which they could launch counterattacks and threaten everything Napoleon had won. Napoleon laid siege to Mantua, but sieges are slow, expensive, and dangerous, because while you are sitting outside someone else's walls, your enemy can gather a relief army and attack you from behind. That is exactly what Austria did. They sent a new army under Field Marshal Dagobert Sigmund von Wurmser, a veteran commander, experienced and confident, with roughly 47,000 men pouring down through the Trentino region in 2 massive columns. Wurmser's plan was actually quite smart on paper. He would advance along 2 separate routes, one column hugging the western shore of Lake Garda under General Quosdanovich, and the other, which Wurmser himself led, moving down the Adige River Valley. The idea was to crush the French from multiple directions simultaneously, force Napoleon to abandon the siege of Mantua, and relieve the trapped Austrian garrison inside the fortress. Napoleon saw the threat clearly. He made a bold decision that most commanders of his era would never have dared. He lifted the siege of Mantua entirely, concentrated his scattered forces with breathtaking speed, and chose not to fight defensively. Instead, he drove straight between the 2 Austrian columns, defeating them in detail before they could unite. He shattered Quosdanovich at the Battle of Lonato, then turned and hammered Wurmser at the Battle of Castiglione on August 5B. It was a masterclass in what Napoleon himself would later call interior line strategy. Wurmser retreated, battered but not broken, pulling his surviving forces northward back up the Adige Valley. But Napoleon was not done. He pursued, and this is where the Battle of Bassano enters the story. By early September 1796, Wurmser had regrouped and was trying to reorganize his forces around the town of Trento. Napoleon launched a bold, two-pronged offensive to cut him off. He sent General Mass up the Adige Valley in a frontal push, while he personally led another force under General Augereau on a sweeping flanking march through the mountains via the Brenta Valley. The terrain was brutal. The march was exhausting, but speed was everything, and Napoleon's troops delivered. On September 8, 1796, the two French forces converged on the town of Bassano del Grappa, where Wurmser's army was attempting to regroup and cross the Brenta River. What followed was not a prolonged, grinding battle. It was a sudden, violent shock. The French hit the Austrians from multiple directions, almost simultaneously. Wurmser's forces, caught in the middle of a river crossing in a difficult urban and riverine environment, collapsed. The Austrians lost thousands of men killed, wounded, or captured. They lost artillery. They lost supplies. They lost cohesion. Wurmser himself barely escaped with a fragment of his army, fleeing southward toward Mantua, where he would eventually ride straight into the besieged city, effectively trapping himself along with the garrison he had come to rescue. Let that sink in for a moment. The commander, sent to relieve Mantua, ended up imprisoned inside Mantua. The relief army sent to push Napoleon out of northern Italy was destroyed in a matter of weeks. And Napoleon accomplished all of this with forces that were outnumbered on paper, fighting in unfamiliar terrain, with supply lines stretched dangerously thin. What made Bassano so significant was not just the tactical outcome, but what it demonstrated about Napoleon's method of war. He was not fighting the way European commanders had fought for the previous century, with slow, methodical advances, careful logistics, and battles fought only when the odds were clearly favorable. Napoleon moved at a pace his enemies could not process. He made decisions in hours that his opponents needed days to debate. He trusted his corps commanders to act independently and aggressively, and he tied their efforts together with a strategic vision that was always 2 or 3 steps ahead of anyone trying to stop him. Austria would try again. They always tried again. Wurmser's successor, Baron Alvinci, would launch 2 more relief attempts before the end of 1796, leading to the extraordinary battles of Arcole and Rivoli. But every time, the pattern held. Napoleon moved faster, hit harder, and thought clearer. And it all flows from the momentum built by campaigns like Bassano, where the Austrians learned, to their horror, that this young Frenchman was not going to stop. The Italian campaign of 1796 is one of the greatest military achievements in recorded history, and Bassano is one of its most underappreciated turning points. It is the battle that proved Castiglione was not a fluke. It is the battle that destroyed Austria's best chance to strangle the French campaign in its cradle. And it is the battle that locked Wurmser, one of Europe's most respected field marshals, inside the very fortress he had crossed the Alps to save. That is the kind of history we are here for at HISTORYVEIL. The stories that do not always make the headlines, but absolutely shaped the world we live in today. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a thumbs up because it genuinely helps this channel reach more history lovers just like you. Subscribe if you are not already part of the community and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. We have incredible episodes coming up, including a deep dive into the Battle of Arcole and the complete story of how Napoleon finally finished what he started at Mantua. You do not want to miss those. drop a comment below and tell me, which battle from the Italian campaign do you want us to cover next? I read every single comment, and I want to know what you think. Until next time, this is HISTORYVEIL. Stay curious, keep questioning, and never stop exploring the past.